Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Briefcase in the Barn with me and Gary. Today's sponsor is Arbonne. Thought I'd bring my stuff today. So if you're watching the video version of this, every morning I grab 2 scoops of my Feel Fit protein, Arbonne protein, a scoop of Be Well Super Greens, some collagen builder, and some gut health every morning in a shake, just with some ice and water. And if you want to feel better,
may help you physically, definitely will not help you mentally and emotionally.
That's probably true. But if you want to feel better physically, if you're care about that part, it's probably the easiest part to take care of.
Ironically, it's so connected to the emotional part of you and the mental part that it's pretty wild.
That is true. Yeah, I did notice that. It actually reminds me of Jim Butler told me this. He goes, Martin Lloyd-Jones, who was a pastor in the UK.
Yeah, he gets quoted at our church a lot.
Okay, so he's a medical doctor first.
Okay.
Before he became a pastor. Okay. And he always asked when people came in to talk to him about depression when he was a pastor, first he'd be like, what are you eating? What are you doing for exercise? And how is your sleep? And those are also the first things he would always ask, because, they are super related.
Yeah, so in Freedom Sessions, we have the HALT scale, right? Or FALT scale, but the HALT scale, hungry, angry, lonely, and tired. And are you dealing with those basic ways to help yourself, obviously?
Yes.
Often it goes much deeper, but a lot of people don't do those things anyways.
So on the physical side, if you want to feel better, that's what I take every morning. There's a link in the description of the video if you want to try it, or if you go to my social media, there's links there as well. And there's a discount if you buy through those links. I think it's like 20% off or something.
Nice. So every morning I drink 3 to 4 cups of black coffee and about 2 liters of water by 10 a.m.
The water's pretty good for you.
Yeah, so is the coffee.
Wide awake. Wide awake.
Wide awake.
How was your week, Gary?
Good. I'm forgetting what happened on the weekend. Spent lots of time.
How are you doing? I should ask that. How are you doing?
How am I doing? Pretty well. On the real estate side, I've been really busy. I eliminate that, but I listed a very big farm for $13 million, a chicken farm. It's a good deal, actually. It's probably not a lot of our target market on the podcast is looking for $13 million purchases, but for farming families or people that are looking to expand or people that are looking to have one sibling or child or somebody, whatever.
$13 million. How does that cash flow?
It doesn't, but no farm ever does. I mean, people that look...
Not in this area.
Well, just not farming. Like farming doesn't cash flow. Like farming is old money. It's, it's an
Would you recommend any young guy to go into farming if that's the case?
Only if you love it.
You have to love it. You have to really.
Anything that doesn't make a lot of sense financially, you obviously have to love, right?
But what about if you're better off starting a farm in Saskatchewan then, or like going to...
It doesn't make a lot of sense there either, honestly. I would argue it makes almost no more. The only thing is that proportionally the dollar amounts are smaller because land is cheaper, so you probably could start with less capital, but I would argue that you could start here on a very small scale, setting up a roadside stand and growing produce, or, there's lots of ways to... People always have an idea in their head of what something should be, and then that's their frame of reference. It's like, no, you have to think outside the box. And for me, I wanted to start farming, and that dream came to fruition through totally another venture where I was selling piles of hay, and then I went to farm credit just for like an operator because I had no line of credit. And
pause that a second.
Okay.
This is a question. No, that's not a rabbit trail. It's perfect. He goes, this is a question that I got this week. How did Gary become successful? What's the success story if you didn't really come from money?
Well, first of all, I would question whether I'm successful because what is the definition of success? I sure would hope.
So this is financially, but it's
fair enough.
That wouldn't be successful, but
yeah. How did I start farming? I mean, it's part of my whole journey of kind of like stopping doing what I wanted and just kind of giving up and not trusting on my own and asking advice from people. And I started selling hay by accident, basically. So I started off first just relief milking for people on dairy farms in Chilliwack as a young guy. Then I started unloading hay by the semi-load. I unloaded sometimes 3-4 semi-loads of hay a day for somebody else. And then I got sick of doing that or just working in that environment, and I wanted to do my own thing, just kind of wanted a bit of freedom. So I went out on a limb, and it was a dying business because basically in the late 90s to early 2000s to 2010, every single dairy farm was switching from feeding small bales like horse hay, like, you still see small bales, but they were all switching from that to huge bales that you unload with the tractor. So basically in 2006 or so, I bought hay elevators. I literally maxed out my credit cards, bought hay elevators, bought a pickup truck from a good friend, and put a rack on that truck and started unloading hay. And like Henry Flutwag and a few other good guys gave me the work, which was awesome. And
okay, so you would just do I would just be
the sole proprietor, doing
Yeah,
it
yeah.
myself,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And you basically, like, it was good money, like, especially back then.
Way more than you were making just as an employee.
Yeah, but I mean, I had the truck and the elevators and the debt. So, I mean,
Yeah.
it was more for sure, especially once I had that stuff paid off. And then it started to kind of snowball. I started to have some other guys work for me, but it was just a dying business. And so then there was a hay guy that got me into selling hay to one customer. He let me deal with one customer because he was selling all big bales. He let me deal with small bales for one customer. And it was really interesting that we were unloading at the same place every time at Chapman Stockyards. One time I did not have enough room to stuff all this product into the hay area, and I was renting a place from Coyman's on the other side of the highway, on this road, ironically, and I just stuffed the hay in there into some shed, and I put an ad on Craigslist, which ties into what last week's story about the Craigslist, which I'll get back to in a minute. But anyway, so I put an ad on Craigslist. All these people came out, and they're like, "Oh, you seem like a pretty friendly fellow. Oh, you know what? Your hay sucks shit, but if you had nice hay, I'd buy hay from you, right? It's just your product sucks." And so that got me thinking, and I was.
So you were buying hay at that point from somebody?
I already was from one grower to one seller.
Okay.
Like, not connecting the dots that I could do this on a larger level. I probably did that for 2 years at least.
Okay.
I never thought, hey, like, I could sell to other, like, just
Yeah.
not. And I think that's most people's thing. Like, it's just the possibilities are endless. It's just we're limited by our own mind mostly.
That's why coaching is so powerful.
Yeah. Okay.
Because all you're just getting challenged on your beliefs, and all of a
if
sudden
your
all your
beliefs
options
change,
open up.
and you're like, wow, I could actually do that. And then fear sets in. So fear would be the other thing that really holds people back, right? So for me, it was like, okay, so I had a guy there again, another great guy, Larry Poole. He helped me get my first load of beautiful hay up. And I still remember delivering it. I remember exactly where I took it. One load I put in the shed by where I lived, sold it by the bale. First, just Craigslist, right? And then Steve Johnson, who's still a partner of mine today, great guy. He built a website a while after that, and then he ended up moving away and going to Haiti as a missionary and stuff. But Dan Slutwig started working for me, and then the rest is history. Like, Daniel delivered a lot of hay, he and I at first, and then him with other people, and sold hay. And then very shortly after, so that was probably 2008, I started selling hay like crazy. 09, 2010, Marie and I got married. And then 6 months later, I went to Farm Credit and asked for like a line of credit. And they said, oh, based on your cash flow, you can borrow quite a bit of money. And I'm like, can I use it for whatever I want? And they're like, yeah, I guess so. And so I went to, I literally pretty much drove straight to the milk board office in Abbotsford. Like, I Googled it, and I'm like, yeah, I always wanted to be a dairy farmer. My dream, I was always told, you will never be a dairy farmer if you're not born into a dairy farm. My dad's never touched a cow.
And at this time, were you getting
in his
advice from people and like having
yes, my
mentors?
My brother-in-law, Wim in particular, has always been a huge supporter of mine, very encouraging, backed me financially at times, lent me money, very gracious, and always, just been a big support. And so,
So you drove through the milk board office?
Yeah, especially in those years, he would have been my main advisor, I would say. And I mean, he probably didn't think it made much sense either. He was willing to be like a partner, help me, but eventually they just lent me the entire amount. And I went and bought 10 cows worth of quota or whatever.
How much would that be?
550,000. And that was in 2010. And I borrowed every single dollar. I had no farm lined up, nothing. And then some dairy farmer, some guy in Abbotsford heard about a farm. And so 6 months after we got married, Marie and I moved to this dumpy old place she had never even seen in the house. We moved in there and started milking our 10 cows. I remember our first milk pickup, and I was literally living my childhood dream, right? And
10 cows in a farm, like that doesn't cash flow at all, does it?
No, it never. I guess that's where I was. That's where
how do you
got
make the
to
payments?
this point. I had it selling hay like crazy.
Oh, okay.
Oh yeah, I was selling like probably every single year from 2008 to 2014. My sales doubled every single year.
Okay.
Like, it was very exponential. And then it's ironic, they've plateaued ever since then. They've never went above that number. It's fascinating.
Is it that when you kind of started not being as involved as you were used to be?
No, I just think that every person, like, I actually talked to Trevor Thronis as a business coach. I've talked to him about this. It's like, I forget the percentage. I think it's, 1% 4% of businesses in Canada hit $1 million in sales. And then it's like 0.4% or something go over 10 million. Like, it's just very hard to get over that number. Yeah. And so,
but you've also shared with me that because you've done so many other things that you don't give as much attention to the hay stuff as you used to.
Yeah. And that would be very accurate. So I still love selling hay. I like the relationship piece of it. Even today, I was in my farm looking at hay that I brought in, and I know it's good value and it's priced right. And it's like, I enjoy that part of it. But it's not like selling product is not that fulfilling after a while.
Yeah.
Like, it's still,
Yeah, I know. Okay, so to 2014, that's you're doubled every year, and
Yeah.
so that's what you were using to pay for the farm.
That's how I was subsidizing my farm. My parents co-signed for a loan in 2013 or so. So then I like tripled the size of my dairy. I went to 40 cows.
Okay,
So I
so another $1 million.
yeah, full $1 million loan. At that point, I think I probably owed 1.1 or 1.2. I was paying down debt at the same time. I was buying quota to cash flow as well. So I did have extra from the hay side. I was just funneling it straight into quota.
Yeah.
And then in 2015, my in-laws, their family, like my mother-in-law and her parents, her mom and dad, and then also like her brother and sister-in-law were farming, and they were retiring. And so they sold me their quota in 2015, and that was 150 cows worth. And so then I and my in-laws co-signed for that loan.
Okay.
And then at that same time, a year later, I had already owned a house in town that I had owned since I was 19. I sold that house in 2015, like the same year as I bought all that quota, and I used that as a down payment to buy a farm in Manitoba with my cousin. So all those things.
Because all this time you didn't actually own any of the farms. You're renting the farms.
No, that was the first farm I owned, and I never actually owned my own farm here until 2019.
Okay.
We bought a farm in Greendale. So in 2018, I sold the farm in Manitoba. I used all that money to buy the farm in Greendale.
Okay. And that's where all your cows are?
No, I sold that in 2020.
Okay. Because
somebody wanted to buy it.
Okay.
And when somebody wants to buy something, I sell it. When someone wants to sell something, I buy it. Those are the two best times to do a deal.
That's fair. That is
Don't
fair.
fight
Okay.
the current. Don't fight the current.
Okay. So then, so those loans, and then the paying off these loans, that came from the hay still?
Yeah. Hay sell.
That was still driving it.
Sell cows, a lot of cows. Like, and in the dairy industry in 2016, 17, and 18, there was 25% growth over those 3 years, which in the dairy is not normal. But basically what we did as dairy farmers is we agreed to sell more milk for less money. And through that, we got a whack of extra growth in the market. And so for someone like me, I was selling milk cows, bringing them in from the US and all over, just buying and selling locally.
Wait. So along with the farming and the quota you're doing, you're also buying and selling cows?
Yeah. Huge part of my business. Probably like in 2017, 18, I'd sell 2,000 cows a year, and they all flowed through that little 40 cow farm.
Okay. And that was just opportunity. You could buy for less, sell for more.
Yeah, I basically, it's the old adage, right? Buy by the mile, sell by the inch. I mean, I'd buy 40 cows at a time. Somebody would come in, pick out two. They'd pick out the exact two that they wanted, and that's been really, really good to me. I never started keeping track. This is embarrassing. Until 2020, I never kept track of how much money I made in cows. And the reason I say I never kept track is because everything just went in the same account. And many entrepreneurs I'm finding as I'm getting older are doing that. They might have 3 different income streams. They actually have no real, they might think so, but they couldn't tell you what they're making on one specific piece. And so for me, my goal in the last 3 years, there's a saying that our accountant has in their office, like, that which is trackable is attainable. It's like, you don't know what you're doing if you're not tracking it. So Calvin, who runs my dairy, he has been tracking to the dollar how much we make on cows. Some months we lose
that's
a pile.
actually true for everything. That's also true for like spiritual disciplines or
everything.
I'm actually having David Mathis on the podcast who wrote the book Habits of Grace. I'm gonna go.
Okay, I've heard of that book.
Yeah. Okay. And so, but yeah, I mean, you track your habits, you track what you're doing. You're gonna be able to look at the data and see for what it actually is.
Yeah.
It's honesty again, right? It's like
facing the truth.
Yeah, facing the truth.
Yeah. So most people don't track because they deep down know that it may not be as great as they think it is, and so they just leave it alone. And it is a lot of work. I would say there is some level of work. The beautiful thing is when you do start to record things, you journal, you keep track of things. I think you just start to be way more intentional in life. You start to really be more self-aware. And some people don't want to be self-aware, but if you do, that's probably a great way to do it.
Yeah. Okay, it ties into something I got this week. So this week I got one of the guys I'm working with wrote a journal, and I got permission from him to share this part of the journal. This is what he said. I struggle a bit with the balance of it being drilled into our culture that we need to work like mules to be good people, and on the flip side of being a good person, as the Bible teaches us to be, helping others, sharing the gospel, providing for the less fortunate, being a faithful dad, husband, and all the things, and making disciples out of my family. I feel like it's easier to get pulled into overworking and having to push myself towards these other things that are actually more important. And I thought, as I read that, I was like, this is like most guys I know. We have this idea that if you're working super hard, working like a mule, like putting in tons of hours, making money, that's like, that gets praised in our culture.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's almost like a, something you're proud about.
It's an idol.
Yeah. But then the other side is like, realizing, okay, there's other responsibilities, but that doesn't, you don't get the accolades for that.
No, you don't get pats on the back at home for changing diapers.
You do 20 years later though, if you consistently do it and you have a good relationship with your son.
Yeah, or even
daughter.
just your wife. I mean, my wife's super appreciative when I'm helpful.
What do you think about that?
That's why I don't like the question that was asked, because whoever's asking that is looking at me in a certain way, which probably isn't that healthy. Like, or, they're not looking at, they're not thinking, okay, like who's sacrificing, right? I mean,
so if you look back at, since 2008,
well,
like
my wife,
what
in our early years of marriage, often I would start work at 4 or 5 in the morning and come home at 10 at night, like literally just come home at 9 or 10 at night. And then she would say like, hey, if we have a family, like you can't live like this. This is not going to work. Well, it didn't work then either. Like if I already have regrets of my early years of marriage, like, can you push really hard? Yeah, but you still have to have some levels of boundaries. You have to realize that it will never be enough, right? There's the old saying, how much is enough money? Just a little bit more. Like that's a fact for everybody. It does not matter how wealthy you are. And I mean, it probably doesn't come across as well from someone like me who's relatively well off, but even people that are barely getting by, like the level of contentment, it's not coming from that stuff, right? You obviously got to be able to feed your family and pay your bills, but I think that the area where I've struggled is kind of always in my life has been, hey, what does ministry look like? Or should I be more doing that or what? No, like we're supposed to work with our giftings. And so if mine is an entrepreneurial thing or I'm able to do this, hey, that's what I got to do, right? And I should be able to do that. And I mean, Bill Booster shared about it really well.
Oh, it should be able to be a
part of it.
The and should be the work.
Yeah. Yeah. But he articulated it better than I am, but just the idea of being, even in his own company, right? Just being generous, being caring for employees and all that. And
I think a big part of it is like your values. Like if you don't have your values, you're not clear on what you want, the data again of what you actually believe, that, I believe that my family is more important than my work. If you're not clear on that or it hasn't been modeled to you or something like that, then you're going to go off of your feelings and what feels better. And naturally we're going to go to things that serve us more than serve the people around us.
I do feel like an entrepreneur, and this is where there needs to be probably a lot of communication, especially in a relationship. But like for me, the early years, and I granted some people just are probably very blessed and become successful and wealthy very quick in a business. I mean, it wouldn't have been healthy for me if that happened. Most people can handle failure way better than they can actually handle success. And definitely more characters.
What do you mean by that? People can handle failure better than they can handle success.
Most men can't handle success that well, right? Most people will tend to become proud. Most people will tend to want more money, not become more generous when they get wealthy. Most people will become thinking they're doing it when they, or cling tighter to their stuff, right? Like, yeah, that's not all people. I'm not paintbrushing. I'm just saying that, like, in really, really hard times, like I noticed it when we had the flood on our farm in 21, like. People's amazing. There's a few stories of bad stories, but most people were just amazing. And most people, their characters shone way brighter. Like people that I didn't even know had the helping spirit were just like showing up with food, like meals, and just it was humbling, right? And so I think the idea of everybody wanting to be successful, whatever our North American culture is probably not right. At the same time, there's people that are called to be extremely business oriented, entrepreneurial, driven. And they have to use their giftings, whatever that looks like, right? Yeah. So that's the challenge. Not at the expense of their family. No. But where I was going with that is in the early seasons of a business, there is going to be some sacrifice on the part of family, most likely.
That's acceptable?
I think it is. I think it'd be a utopia to think that people that built amazing things over the centuries to think, oh, they could have just toned her down a little bit and been successful. I mean, I don't know. I would struggle with that. I don't have a biblical reference for why I'm justifying that right now. I just feel like I'm saying I did way too far.
Yeah.
I'm just saying there's people that are building businesses, their life is not going to look like the person that works for them. There just never are. The person that's building something is wearing a weight and responsibility that an employee will never fully understand unless they go do it themselves.
Yeah, a weight and responsibility I can fully accept and understand.
Time. But there's just going to be crap that you have to deal with at inopportune times. There's going to be families that holidays that are not going to look the same as the person who leaves their phone at home and doesn't have to deal with anything for a week, right?
Yeah, I guess I think that, people can just run away with that.
I've justified all kinds of horrible things, so I'm probably not the one to give a lecture on it. But
on the money thing, that's interesting. You said that how you think failure is easier to handle than success. I read this quote from Spurgeon this week. It's a little bit longer, but he says, "It is very difficult for a man to have much money running through his hands without some of it sticking. It is very sticky stuff, and once it sticks to the hands, they are not clean in the sight of the Lord. Unless a man is able to use money without abusing it, accepting it as a talent lent to him and not as a treasure given to him, it will soon happen. The more money he has, the more troubles he will have. Charles Spurgeon.
Okay, well, I don't want to butcher a Spurgeon quote, but one of my sayings that I always use is, money's like honey. The more you play with it, the more it sticks to you.
Oh, there we go. I think Spurgeon would approve.
Oh dear.
But I think with money too, like I think Randy Dyke said it in his podcast, he became really successful in one area, and he right away started assuming he was going to be really smart in all these other areas.
And just got educated.
Yeah, and money does that, right? You start making a lot of money, you start thinking you have power, and I mean,
also, who cares? Like, I think that most people fear failure too much in the sense of, like, even if you do fall flat on your face, like, at least you did it. Most people are just standing on the sidelines, pointing fingers, being critical, and never, like, the man in the, what's the quote from was it a president that said it, or?
Said what?
Oh, it's the man in the ring quote. Have you not heard it?
Man in the ring?
Yeah, anyways, we'll find it for next
president?
podcast. Yeah, it's
what
a good
ring?
quote. It's one of my favorite quotes. Just proverbial ring. It's about the man that's actually in the ring fighting, taking a beating.
Oh, okay.
I'm probably using the wrong term. Somebody's listening to this just short-circuiting because I don't know what I'm talking about. But anyways.
Okay. Well, good answer. I enjoyed that. Proverb of the week. We're done the series of Fruits of the Spirit, so we have to think of a new series. So if you have any ideas, guys, send them in. Okay, Proverb of the week. Proverbs 24, 5 and 6. The wise are mightier than the strong, and those with knowledge grow stronger and stronger. So don't go to war without wise guidance. Victory depends on having many advisors. Ties
in nicely to my conversation earlier.
Yes.
The last verse.
Many advisors. I think a many advisors thing is huge. I mean,
but not many advisors to finally find someone who agrees with what you already wanted to do.
Yes, that's
a lot of people do that. They just keep running around in circles till they find some bozo that agrees with their horrible idea. Yeah. It's like, if you get three pretty wise people, the first people all kind of look at you, and people aren't blunt enough in today's day and age either. We don't want to offend people, but if people are looking at you quizzically or kind of questioning things, that's probably a sign that they're not like. Whereas if people say, hey, that's a great idea, that would be affirmation, right? If they're questioning you, don't take that as, they just have a few concerns. That's probably a polite Canadian's way of saying, hey, you're a fool. Don't move forward with that, right?
Exactly.
But for me, it's been like my gift, like having very wise guys that have done really well and just, and being honest with me, they'll just blow it right out of the water. That's a stupid idea, Gary. Why would you do that? That's just not smart, right? And I know that they care about me. And when you have trust or relationship with someone where you know they care about you, you should be able to take a hard word from them and not be too offended. So
and be open to it in the first place. I mean, there's lots of good coaches or mentors out there, got people in the church and stuff like that are more than willing to sit down with you and hear your business out or whatever you're doing and stuff like that and speak into you. But you got to be willing to change, and that's people don't want to do that.
Yeah. How long are we at now? I always wonder how long
we are at 24 minutes. It says. Okay. Is that too long for you?
Well, lots of people say they like the podcast because it's short.
Half hour. Well, I mean, compared to the other ones, they're like 2 hours, right? So.
Oh, I see. Compared to your others, yeah.
Those are the long form ones. I want to do a quick plug here for Big Brothers Big Sisters. So I went there to their Sip and Social fundraiser last week, and so Big Brothers Big Sisters is an organization that finds kids in the area that are in need of some sort of mentor, guy or girl, generally below 15 years old. I think I don't know exactly. It's like
how old do you need to be a big brother? Just an adult?
An adult, yeah. And so they are looking for people to spend 1 hour a week with these kids for a year and just to mentor them, go do something with them. It's not a lot of time, but they're looking especially for guys, and there's a huge, huge need. And so I know everyone's really busy, but if you're listening to this and
you feel convicted, super important.
Yeah. Go and at least go and investigate and be open to the idea
of
a
meeting or give a phone call.
Give a phone call.
Who would you talk to there? Is there a person there that's kind of in charge of the program, the connecting of the big brothers and little
there's going to be people, Big Brothers, Big Sisters are all over the US and Canada. And so wherever you're listening, I think just go to Google your local chapter and
they're all over.
Yeah. Reach out online. But there's just a huge need, and you can have a really, really big impact on someone's life and they're a huge need. So
I did a similar thing, not identical, but it was restorative justice. This is the same mantra of kind of
You were the person that was the
The
issue.
offender.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, initially, first I went through as an offender,
Okay.
and then I went through as a facilitator. Well, first a mentor, and then a facilitator.
Okay. Who was your mentor when you were in it?
Don't remember.
So he wasn't very good.
Well, I basically got sentenced to community service hours. Did I tell you the story already that I was working at the bingo hall in Rosedale?
No.
This is when they still had smoking there. I hung out with all the old ladies that were playing bingo on Saturday night smoking. It was awesome. I just chain smoked cigarettes with them, got them new dabbers, learned a whole new skill set. Bingo. Anyways, that was a long time ago. But then I went through as I got older.
What did that have to do with restorative justice?
Because that's in restorative justice, you basically, rather than like go to jail,
Yeah.
eventually that had to happen too. But it was a process where you would go through as an offender and you would sit in a circle with all the people that were involved in the crime, whatever it was, major, minor. If it was shoplifting, it'd be the store owner. It could be whatever, any type of business that was vandalized. It would be all the people that were affected. And then everybody would get to share about how it affected them, how it felt. Pretty powerful experience. And then eventually there would be some type of solution. Hey, what would restoration look like in this case, right? And sometimes pretty serious, right? I mean, there's people that were physically assaulted. You'd have the kids,
So
everybody there.
This one, you had stole something at the bingo hall?
No, me and my buddy lit a Canada Post mailbox on fire on Halloween in the early 2000s, and there was a police officer right behind us. And because it's actually a federal offense to tamper with mail. I didn't know that until I got pulled over. But anyways.
Reminds me of they do that in Holland at New Year's. They weld them all shut, so they'll all be gone.
Okay.
The fireworks, they
Blow
up all the mailboxes.
Anyways, great program. Big Brothers Big Sisters, great program as well.
Yeah,
we'll check it out.
Look it up. Okay, got another cost of living question. This is a question that came in from a listener.
Okay,
Pete. Okay, here we go. Because of cost of living, how do you start a partnership and buy a house together with your kid? So let's say you're, 50s and 60s, whatever else like that, and you want to buy a house with your kid.
You want to help your kid?
Yeah, help your kid buy a house. How do you do that? Let's say you're in your 50s now and you buy the house, and then let's say you die in your 60s. Like, what happens then?
I don't agree with it. I have two people that are trying to do this right now. Somebody came over last night and ran it by me about buying a house with a sibling, and then I had another client who's talking about buying a house with family, and I really disagree with it. As a general rule, I mean, there again, I'm paintbrushing. There's probably situations where it's fine. I would be way more inclined for you to just co-sign for a loan and have them buy something for way less money. I think there's a bit of there again, I don't know this person's situation, but there's a lot of people that tend to feel like, hey, we're entitled to own a house with a big backyard. It's like, no, we're becoming an urban center. And similar to if you lived in Vancouver the last 40 years, like person's buying their first time home on the west side on a 8,000 square foot lot, right? Like they're just buying like an apartment in the sky. And I'm not saying it has to be that here, but unless housing prices crash a lot, which I think they're going to correct a lot, but I don't think they're going to crash. They're going to correct a lot. To me, it would make a lot more sense to help your kid get into a place that they can actually afford, they can do on their own. Because the problem is, independence is a beautiful thing. It teaches so many things that you'll never learn when you do something with a parent, right? So yeah, like a little nudge or a bit of help or a cosign or a help with a bit of a down payment, but to like be 40, 60 partner. And I could write a book on the amount of messy relationships that come from business partnerships. And there again, there's people that do it well. My experience personally, and just watching others, has been, it's a horrible idea as a general rule. And there again, I mean, there are families and people that have.
So you don't go into partnerships anymore, or you're just really?
No, I'm married to my wife, and that's it, and that's enough. Like that's my motto. Like that's enough. Like there again, that's not true. I have one business partner, but he and I my wife says we're more married than her and I are, but that's BS. But like, there's just certain.
You'd rather sit with him on the couch?
We would definitely have more to talk about. Bad joke.
Yeah, I'm
gonna get skewered. No, I digress. Even that has its challenges. We've had sticky moments, we've had awkward conversations, and I just think it's totally fine. And it's, there again, that's a separate business that neither of us needs anything out of. We do it. We have the same vision. It's totally fine. However it plays out, neither of us care.
Yeah.
But most business and relationships aren't like that. And the thing is, this is where it really gets sticky. When you have a father with a kid, the father has more wealth. They have other kids typically that they need to help out. There's a power imbalance there.
Yeah, massive power
imbalance. The kid's along for the ride. And, just if you're going to help them, actually help them and let them be independent and do their thing, right? Unless you actually think they're a fool and they need a lot of guidance, or maybe they just really are terrified and you need to, that's part of you coaching them. But there's something beautiful of independence. So me personally, if in Chilliwack, a person had to decide between, hey, my son and daughter-in-law, or I'm just using that as an example, are going to buy the first place, I'd rather they live in a 2-bedroom apartment for $350,000 that they can barely afford on their own, rather than helping them buy a $650,000 townhouse that mom and dad own 3/4 of, because the loss needs to be theirs. If there's a loss, if there's an equity decrease, and if there's a gain, let them take the whole gain. And like, it starts to get messy, who gets what.
Yeah. Or move to Saskatchewan. I was just talking to my brother-in-law and this morning, and he bought a place last year, I think it's like 45 minutes or an hour north of Saskatoon for 80 grand.
In the middle of nowhere.
For 80 grand.
And it will always be worth 80 grand.
Oh,
I just bought a commercial property in Quesnel, and we paid the same money, less money, 40,000 less than it sold for in 2007. Like,
but isn't that's fine.
It's
awesome.
fine if you don't care about if you just want somewhere to live, totally. Yeah. And I would argue that anywhere in the prairies will always be like that, because they don't have the ALR. Like in BC, we have the Agricultural Land Reserve, and I'm going to get skewered here now too for talking about, taking out farmland, but there's pieces in Chilliwack. I don't care how good the farmland is. Like, just strategically as a city, we need to decide that some of this land needs to be, into housing and kind of the city.
Did the city get to decide that?
No, it was the BC government made it in 1972.
Who regulates the ALR?
Well, the ALC does, the Agricultural Land Commission, and they are the most powerful. Like, there's nobody, you're not appealing to the ALC when they make a decision.
The premier can't even.
No. They appoint people that are on the ALC. And so depending on the government, like now we're going to have a conservative government, which there's probably people a little more pro-business and maybe a little less safe, but it won't matter. I mean, in our province, whether you're conservative or left-leaning or whatever your political bent is, I mean, people feel very strongly about local agriculture. And I do too, like really strongly. I just feel like Canada's a big country, and when we have urban areas where we decide, hey, this is the nicest climate to live in, and this is where people want to live, like as much as possible, we should allow that. And the worst part is, back to the Agricultural Land Reserve, there are lots and lots of pieces in our area, in Chilliwack, that I know in particular, that are totally never going to be farmland. Like, they're horrible chunks of farmland, but we don't have any subjective wise people that say, hey, this guy the biggest reason that the land doesn't come out is because they don't want people to become instant millionaires. And that's what happens, right? So you picture somebody that owns a 30-acre piece of land. Right now it's worth $3 million. All of a sudden it's going to be worth $9 million or $12 million. No,
why don't they want that?
Because they don't like people getting rich. People are jealous. They think, oh, why shouldn't someone else get rich easy? There's literally that petty of reasons that people.
It's almost like people are sinners.
It's almost like people are sinners all the time, everywhere. Doesn't matter where.
You bleed sin.
Yeah, but anyway, so the ALR has been around for a long time, and there have been very controversial pieces that have been taken out, and there's gray area pieces, like where Molson Coors is in Chilliwack. Like, we're all going to agree that piece is not being used for farming. It's got a massive factory pounding out beer every day, but it's agriculture, right? Like, it's taking wheat and other agricultural products and turning it into beverage.
Okay.
That was to do with the partnership. Did I answer the question?
Yeah, I think you did.
Yeah. Pretty strongly, too strongly probably.
But if someone does want to go with partnership anyway,
how do they do it?
Who would they go talk to?
Seek wise counsel. They're going to talk to an accountant, they're going to talk to a lawyer, and they're going to talk to somebody that knows both parties, that can speak truth to both of them and give them the pros and the cons. Okay. And most people don't do that. They sit in a table, they have no idea how to move forward, and one of them agrees to something that they shouldn't agree to, and it's usually the person that is
in the power.
Yes. Yeah. Power imbalances. And
so how do you do that in a company? Because this happens often in companies where.
Oh, I'll tell you right now, in a company, you're hooched. Like, the president calls the shots.
Yeah. But if you're the president of a company or business owner, you want to, of course, run a well-run business. You want to do well for your employees, stuff like that. You want to put yourself in a position where you can get called out if you're doing something offside, at least, but maybe not by your own employees, but at least by somebody else. Like, how do you protect yourself? Because it's not good to be surrounded by yes men. Like, you want good advisors. Good advisors are not yes men.
I think there's a swath of people that probably want to be challenged, but even me, if I had to be really honest with you, I struggle with that. It stings. And I'm a control freak, so I'd like to do it my way. But yeah, ideally you have some people in your life that, and I have that with close friends. I have guys that will say, no, that's just not smart, or think big picture, or just like, why are you treating that guy that you know? And I've seen it enough where people have quit in other businesses, and I'm like, ooh, wait a minute, I'm kind of doing that. Hey, and I have lost people, right? And it's just like, no, you gotta. Yeah. People don't generally quit because of money. Like they do sometimes, and young people might for sure, because young people then tend to think grass green on the other side. But somebody who's 35, 40 years old, if they leave, they're leaving because of a seismic shift in their either how they feel about the business or they're looking for something different. Or, anyways, we're turning this into a long episode, and I can feel the criticism coming. We got overtime yet.
You shouldn't worry about it. You mentioned the story last week of the hay and Craigslist. You referred to it in the start of the podcast. You were going to say something about it.
Yeah, I have to set the record straight. A few people thought that I posted it in the casual encounter section on purpose.
Oh.
Not true.
Okay. That's clear the air on that. If you were wondering.
No, somebody was wondering. They're basically accusing me.
Well, I did put it in the title, so casual encounters. I thought that would be a good grab. Not that people watch for the title, but
do people even know what casual encounters are?
Nicole asked. She's like, what kind of casual encounter?
How casual was it? Yeah. Very casual. Yeah. I was sweating profusely, covered in hay.
This is terrible.
Said, pardon?
Okay, we're going to go into overtime. You're doing a book giveaway again in overtime. So if you want to support the show, I mean, you'll see the extra right now.
Yeah.
So you guys.
And the cool thing is you have to say what the book is, right? So you don't get to say how. Yeah. Anyways, you got to watch the overtime
to know what book you're giving away. Yeah. It's one of my favorite books, though. It is really good.
Yeah.
Anyways. Okay. See you guys next week. Thanks again for listening to another episode of The Briefcase in the Barn. As always, really appreciate it. Like, comment, subscribe, share it with social media, any of that stuff. It helps a lot. Also, if you like the content and you're benefiting from it and wouldn't mind supporting the show, patreon.com/furiously-curious. I'll put a link in the description as well, or you can find that link in any of my social media bios. You also get access to overtime episodes that way. So thanks again for listening, and I'll see you guys next week.